All right, hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy. I'm here with Rick David right now. Matt is going to be calling in, so Matty B will be in a second. He just won't have his video this week, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Going through high tempo today. I'll kick it off. My high tempo topic is the University of Georgetown. They have a section in one of their stadiums for their basketball. Big basketball school. Patrick Ewing's their coach. I think so. And they have a section in their stadium that they call the actual reality section, where if you sit here, I think it's 50 seats, you give up your phone, and you watch the game without having to deal with people like just staring at their phone or whatever they need to do. So I think that's a very cool thing, and I wish they did more of it. And I would love to see it more at concerts, because when you go to a concert, every guy in front of you is holding up their phone when they play their favorite song, and you damn well know that they're not going to go home and ever watch that video. So good to see it. Too many people are sitting there taking pictures of themselves at the games. I don't care if you take one or two of them. That's fine. But don't sit there the whole time filming the game, because you're never going to watch it again. How many times do you DVR a game and go back and rewatch it? You don't. So good to see Georgetown implementing this. They even have people turn their phones in. I think that's a bit extreme, but it would be cool if everyone stopped pulling out their phones in the game and just had a good time. But
Rich, you there?
Yeah, you there?
Yeah, I just came on board.
All right, we're live, dude. So
awesome.
You want to jump in with your high tempo?
Well, my high tempo is going to spill in with all of the other stuff that we have going on as far as the games over the weekend. So I'll just hold off till we get into some of the other stuff.
All right, sounds good. Rick, what's your high tempo for this week?
My high tempo is, I'm going to go with something I just read here not too long ago, was according to Fangraphs, who just did a poll, the fourth worst owner in Major League Baseball is Bob Nutting. So not surprised, because all he cares about is wallet. Orioles owner Angelos is on here as well. There's another guy who cares about his wallet. And also, the other ones, Mets are another one that's here, the owners of them. Another team only cares about their wallet. And I'm surprised Sherman already for Miami Marlins made the list. So congratulations to him. New guy, and he already makes the list since he bought the team from Loria after he sold it. So, I mean, it's not surprising. Pirate fans revolt. But again, prove to me, I mean, they got a huge signing a day or two ago. I think everybody missed it. Ryan LaVarnway, who's my age, who's now currently bounced around to about 5 minor league teams, is now going to be in the Pirates organization. So, I mean, that's a huge signing, because he's going to be going nowhere. But, I mean, this free agent market, and that's my other point off of this too, the free agent market's going nowhere because everybody's demanding these insane contracts, and nobody wants to do it because of luxury tax penalties. Because the teams that are paying it don't want to do it, and they all want to get in the Bryce Harper market of next year when all those guys hit next year. So, I mean, not surprised. And a lot of these big name guys aren't that big name anymore. Darvish is out there, but he stunk during the playoffs. So the Astros teed off on him.
Yeah, he was a complete bust. He was one of the reasons they lost.
Yeah, and Arrieta wasn't that good at the end of the year. The Pirates were even hitting him. He did not look good, and he wants big money. He wants 5 years. He'll be lucky if he gets 2 years at this point. So, I mean, they're big names, but they're not that good anymore. And the next free agent class is even better.
Rick, do you think there's anyone at this point that the Pirates should be looking at or going after?
I would say, if you want to do something insane, you would actually move Bell back to his original spot, which is the outfield. And then you would sign Logan Morrison at first base. A lot of teams are talking to him right now. He was actually in the Indians they had him and Alonso. They chose Alonso over him. So right now, Kansas City looks like where he'll go. It looks like wherever gets Hosmer, wherever he goes, between Red Sox to Kansas City or to San Diego, it looks like the loser of that will get Logan Morrison to some extent. So, I mean, I think that's the thing. I would take a look at him. He actually hit well. He was an all-star, too. So, I mean, there's a guy that's out there that's quality. So, I mean, do you want to look at a guy like Jose Reyes, too? He'll be a backup at this point. So, not unless you trade Harrison. I mean, I still hear the everyday rumor that Harrison's getting traded. So, But, I mean, that would be another guy. And I think he'd still need to find a fourth outfielder somehow. I mean, Matt Joyce was a guy who came here as a fourth outfielder, did great, and got a big contract the next year to Oakland. He's still on that contract. So I would look for a fourth outfielder. I like what the Giants did and got Austin Jackson to a 2 years for $6 million. Good defensive outfielder, hit 300 last year. Maybe that's a guy you could take a look at. And he plays center field, and he has good defensive matrix. So I think you got to find somebody out there who's, I don't know how to say it. You got to find somebody out there cheaper who maybe not need to play every day of the season, can take days off because they have enough guys because their bench is already filling out after the Houston trade because Moran's going to take a spot now. Freeze, it's either Moran or Freeze are going to take those spots. So, I mean, a lot of spots are already claimed. So, and do you bring up the kids too? You're not going to bring up Newman to sit the bench. They're shortstop prospect, not unless you get rid of Mercer.
Yeah, and to add in my 2 cents, I don't think at this point you already traded away your big names. You're not going to get a draw with any of the guys you named. Maybe some people will be familiar with Logan Morrison, but is that really going to get fans in the seat? So at this point, just trade. Just go all in. Tank. You were 17 games behind the division last year? And we'll use this. I already moved the topic toggle into Steel City Update since you went pretty good there for the Pirates. But, I mean, there's nothing really else to add. This year, you're already done. If you're a Pirates fan, you're done. You cannot be positive about this season at all. Because if you have any hope around the middle of the year, you know that they're going to fade at the end because they don't have the depth or anything. So no matter how they start, this season's already in the tank. You might as well just not trade anyone, not sign anyone. Just keep that. Like I said, try to keep the money and then save it for next time when some of these guys come up. If they trade Harrison, I don't even know what's going to happen. There will be completely empty sections for games.
Well, I think that's going to be the selling point is that if they can keep things competitive by the middle of the year, I think they might be willing to spring money to try to draw some crowds in. I think a lot of the willingness of the ownership to spend money is going to hinge on how do the fans actually make good on their word. I see a lot of stuff on Twitter saying we're going to boycott, protest the Pirates, hit them in the wallet. And unless they actually back up what they're talking and people quit watching on TV, quit going to the ballpark, quit spending money there, put them in a position where they have to spend some money to draw in some prospects. I think that's the only way that they make that push is if the younger players can somehow make things competitive long enough to justify making a move to sign someone for a longer term deal.
Yeah, and it's sad. If you really think about what you just said, you're hoping that they are close enough that they spend on someone just to get people in the seats. That's not to contend. Who cares if there are people there and they're making money? Because they're already screwing the fans. The money doesn't come back to the fans ever for the Pirates. If we're looking at salaries, it just doesn't come back. So why would I care if there's fans in the seats and they're making revenue? It doesn't matter. At this point, I'd rather have it be a bust to try to get new ownership that tries to care about the team, even though I know Major League Baseball owners really don't want that. But, I mean, at least they have, I would say this, at least the Pirates they're lucky in the situation that compared to the Penguins, they have more casual fans that will tune in and will go to the ballpark just because they want to be at a Major League game, get some ballpark hot dogs or permanis or whatever they want to eat there. They're going to go just for the atmosphere. I don't think it's going to ever be extreme as when the Penguins, before they got Crosby, where they were dead last in attendance and they were having all kind of issues. I don't think the Pirates will ever get that because they have enough casual fans that don't care if they win. They're just there to go out, get a few beers, hang out with some friends, and I mean, that's going to be the downfall for the diehard fans. Rick, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with you. And the thing is, the Pirates still have the best stadium out there. And it draws people in from other areas. I mean, I was looking at this earlier today during my supper break today. I was looking at ballpark tours. 2 out of the 5 ballpark tours done by the biggest company, but they end up going to Pittsburgh. They're one of only 2 teams, and the other team's easy to guess. It's the Yankees. And they have the ballpark tours, and 2 of them. I mean, one's because it's the Yankees, and the other is because our ballpark's nice. I mean, that's the main things. The fans are going to show up because it's cheap to go to the ballpark compared to other stadiums. It's actually cheap. And comparing it to Steelers versus Pirates to Penguins, they're cheap by way leaps and bounds. And there are even deals. I mean, you could go Advantage card, take money. StubHub, I know last year I was buying tickets on StubHub for like $6 to go to the game. I was buying $30 tickets for $6. I mean, that's going to be true this year too. People wanted those tickets for certain games where they know Cubs fans are going to come in crazy. Reds fans are going to come in. Detroit, these teams are going to come in. And here's some names. I know Matt asked for some other names. I was looking down through the free agent listings. John Jay is out there, probably not going back to Chicago because they're loaded in their outfield now. Can play 3 positions. Not going to be a big name, but there. And a guy who was drafted before McCutchen in the MLB draft, Cameron Maben's out there too. Played 3 positions. He's probably not going back to Angels or Houston. So, I mean, that's probably a guy that's out there too because he sat Houston's bench at the end of the year. Angels, he played until Justin Upton showed up, really. So, I mean, there are 2 guys out there that can help him out. And, I mean, the nice thing is there's 2. I mean, people complain about Tony Watson trade. Tony Watson's still out there. So if the Pirates really wanted to and they wanted to improve it, they improved the right-handed side of the bullpen. They didn't improve the left-hand side of the bullpen as much. So they could still go out there. And, I mean, there's a homeless John Jaso out there. He was going to go live in his houseboat next to Derek Bell. I mean, he's out there too. I mean, so many great ball players. By the way, true story, me and Mrs. Rick were out there one day. He walked by us with a cardboard box of all of his stuff, and there was still a week to go in the season. I'm like, well, he must realize he ain't playing anymore this season. He done. He gone.
That's funny, dude. We'll go ahead and switch into we'll leave that misery, and we'll talk about the Penguins a little bit. Penguins, they were on a little bit of a run. They tapered down. The division's so tight still. They're in, 6th place? And they have 53 points, which is actually tied for 5th. They're 6-4 in their last couple games. Still that -7 goal differential, which I hate. They're playing the Hurricanes right now, I believe. That's a team where when you're in the mix for the playoffs, you can't lose to the last place team every time you play them. And that's how the Penguins and the Hurricanes have been going. Penguins have been losing to them. And whenever you're battling, you don't want to lose to that team because that's what's going to prop you up. They're up 2-1 right now in the 3rd. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm hoping that within the last couple months here of the season, they can make a run. And I don't care if they squeak in at the 8th spot. Just make the playoffs because they have enough experience to get a few rounds wins and maybe see what happens. Doesn't matter your seeding in NHL. It's not like the other sports. Just make the playoffs. That's all I care about. Have anything to add about the Penguins, Rick?
No, and I kind of agree with you, kind of not. And Penguins are right now in the 9th spot when it goes to the playoffs. If they beat Carolina, they get in the top 8. I would not want to be the 8th position because you got Tampa Bay and they look great this year. I would actually rather be the 7th spot. But again, you can win out of the 8th spot. If you look back at one of the Kings, they came out of the 8th spot and swept everybody. So, I mean, it could be done. Hockey's the one sport I will say in the playoffs that doesn't look rigged as much as the other ones because you can see teams that aren't in that top spot win and win convincingly. Like this is their like when the Kings won, it didn't look like there was a team that could beat them. So
yeah, and I'll say this: I would rather have them play Tampa Bay in the first round if they're heads and shoulders above everyone, like it looks like right now. Play them first when you're kind of fresh, because if the fatigue sets in from playing into 2, hopefully 3 Stanley Cups in a row, you're not going to want to hit them late. Get them out of the way and then battle through what would be the number 1 seed slate, because then you'll have the easier second round of the 2. And, well, I guess, I don't know, do they reseed in the NHL? Actually, I don't remember now. like the NFL does. So maybe they won't, but at least get the top seed out of the way so that whenever you're getting worn down again, you're not fighting them and then have to play 2 perennial top teams back to back to win the cup. So I don't know. That's my perspective. I'd rather see them just get in at this point. I don't think there's a difference between seeds. But we'll go ahead and switch to the NFL now. Nothing on the Steelers. Besides the fact that, actually, I might as well add this in because I did have this in my notes. It was reported that Le'Veon Bell didn't even show up for walkthroughs before the Jaguars game. And he's demanding more money. They need to cut him. And Jeff hasn't been on the show for a while, but I was talking to him. He thinks they need to keep him because he's head and shoulders like one of the top backs in the league. Whether he's number 1 or number 2, that's debatable. But still, you can't have a locker room cancer. You can't, because you can't have one guy doing whatever he wants, because then you're going to have other guys out of sync on the offense. And to me, I don't even think the offense is the problem. But when you start with that, you know the rest of the team is not going to be disciplined at all. And I don't want to be negative early that the season's not even over. But next year, there's not going to be any changes. If that's how the locker room is, you don't have really any coaching changes, maybe a new offensive coordinator. But I would assume Tomlin, he's a head coach. He should have came down on him because this has been a problem all year for Bell. And I hate to see this, but you look at one guy, he's always in trouble. Cut him loose. Cut him loose. I don't care what his talent's like. I mean, who was the guy we picked up? Willie Parker the one year, a nobody out of college, and he took him to Super Bowl. So you really don't need the top name back. That's not how it works in Pittsburgh, especially if you have Ben Roethlisberger, who's able to spread the ball around. But I want to get your thoughts, Matt. What do you think on the Bell situation? I know you were kind of mad about that as well.
Oh, I was furious about it. That's why going in, I wasn't optimistic about Pittsburgh making it far in the playoffs, because I felt like there's a severe lack of discipline in the locker room and in the franchise that's holding them back. You know, when you look at the past week's games, when you look at New England and Jacksonville, New England played an almost penalty-free ball game because they worked on details. They work on little things that makes them a better team. You don't have guys. You didn't hear anyone from New England's team talking about how much they're getting paid or when are they going to hold out next year. It was win right now. Do what's best for the team right now, not this selfish eye stuff. You know, Le'Veon Bell's talking about possibly retiring if they try to franchise him. It's insane. Like, in what part of normal society do you think that that's acceptable? You know, the example that I look at is earlier in the year, Martavius Bryant was mouthing off and not being a good team player. And for as frustrated as I've been at times with Tomlin, he put him on the practice squad. He didn't activate him. He gave him some form of disciplinary action for him pouting about not getting the ball. And you didn't hear a peep from him the second half of the year. He shut his mouth. He played ball, and he came down the stretch and made some plays for him.
Yeah, he was productive.
Yeah. I think Le'Veon Bell has this I'm better than everyone mentality. Go to Cleveland. Go to Chicago. Go to a place where you don't have an all-pro offensive line in front of you. You don't have your DeCastros and your Pounceys and those guys that are opening those holes for you. How good are you going to be then? You know, if you think you're that much better, go somewhere else. To me, they can make do with lesser quality people, and they've shown that they have been able to do it. I'd rather have a high-quality guy there than to have some cancer that's all he's worried about is his next payday. Because guaranteed, as soon as they give him that money, the first thing he's going to do is pull a quad or pull a hammy because he's too busy counting his money instead of training, making the team better. Don't need it. Get gone.
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
And I want to take Matt's idea and twist it a little bit. I mean, you don't need them. You can franchise tag them and trade them. That has happened in the past, and you could do it again. So, I mean, why not do that? Trade him. That way you save the money. You don't have to pay him a darn thing. You know, it doesn't affect the salary cap. You trade him. And you take Matt's point of Steelers have this great offensive line. Well, I'm looking at the free agents right now. Isaiah Crowell's out there who's still younger and he did great with a terrible Cleveland offensive line outside Joe Thomas. Outside of that person, he did great with them. Imagine him with the Steelers line, and you're not going to pay him much. Bell, you're going to pay somewhere around 12 to 14 or 16 million. Crowell got paid 2.7 last year. He'll probably go up to about 4 million. Think of that. That move was going to counteract it. Then you got $10 million to save, where you could go get somebody to replace Mike Mitchell, who can't tackle anything. He has trouble playing ghosty tag. I don't know. But, you can use that money in other ways then. Figure out how to move the money around.
Yeah, at this point, they need something to change, and they're not trying to do it. They had a chance. I'm surprised they didn't go after Jack Del Rio. If Del Rio is willing to be a DC, it's looking like he might sign with the Giants. Give him an offer, because defense has been the biggest weak point. He's a disciplinarian. I don't remember any of his team players getting in trouble. Marshawn Lynch was even behaving under him with the Raiders for the most part. So get a guy that's going to change the culture and try to win. If you're not going to make a change at the head coaching position, make it at your coordinators, make it at both of them, make the flip, and try to get everything changed. By doing a half-season forcing Todd Haley out, that's not going to do anything. It's not going to reel in Bell. It's not going to do anything. And we're going to be back here, the same exact thing. We're basically becoming just a slightly better version of the Bengals. That's all we are. The only difference is Steelers actually win one playoff game. Bengals get to the playoffs and they don't win. Is that any better? No. You're still going to have the off-field issues. You're still going to have the players mouthing off and fighting and stuff like that. So, I don't know. We'll go ahead. Go ahead, Matt.
You had brought up about the – hold on. You had brought up about the coordinators. Haley just signed with Cleveland to be their OC, and Hugh Jackson's been willing to give up his offensive play calling duties. So that's going to be something going into next year to see. For as many people in Pittsburgh that's complained about the dink and dunk screens and this and that with Pittsburgh's offense, they were a top 5 offensive unit the last couple of years.
Yeah.
They've moved the ball. In their playoff loss, they scored 40 points. He did his part and did his job, but because they weren't satisfied with what he was doing because of real or perceived issues that he had with
Don't say
Roethlisberger.
it's a scapegoat. They made him the scapegoat is what they did. Go ahead. Did I cut you off? But
No, that's exactly whether it was real, whether it was perceived, whatever that was with Ben, they made him to be the fall guy, and it is what it is. I'm curious to see now how next year plays out, because now you have to face him twice, and it's not like Todd Haley doesn't know what all the issues are with your team. Curious to see how they attack Pittsburgh going into next year.
Yeah, a loss to a 3-win Browns team is never a good look if that's how it shakes out. But we'll flip it on its head here and switch to the Patriots-Jaguars. I just named this section The Legacy of Tom Brady because he's so majestic. Watching him play quarterback is like what I would imagine stumbling upon a unicorn flying through the air would look like. Just perfect. Nothing he can do. He just kind of chilling out there. He came in, they were down. Jaguars had a chance to step on the throat. They didn't do it. They didn't do anything. And they were just they went into that same exact thing that the Falcons did. And I was watching the game, and at first I was worried because I wanted Tom Brady to win. And I know that's going to go against most Steeler fans here, but I don't care. Tom Brady's a fellow Michigan man, and I want him to get as many Super Bowls as he can. And I actually have a stat on that. Tom Brady has appeared in more Super Bowls, 8, than the bottom 10 teams in the NFL combined. They had 6. And with a bunch of them never even making it, like the Lions and the Browns. So that's just an amazing stat that almost a third of the league, basically a third of the league, has been in less Super Bowls than Tom Brady. And I'm hoping he gets the job done. He had a cut on his hand. I was feeling bad. He didn't want to come out and say it, but that probably affected some of his throws. Otherwise, he'd have been more accurate out there. But great game by him. Rick, you look a little disgusted. What are your thoughts on Tom Brady?
First off, the Michigan homer count is 2 by you. Second of all, I mean, the referees played a great game. They only threw one flag. The first one to congratulate Tom Brady was Cleat or whatever his hell his name is. He should be fired. I mean, I don't know how you do it right on live TV. Pretty much just extend your hand and be like, I love you, Tom Brady. Congratulates on the win. That's almost fair and unbiased. I mean, geez. Why don't you just give him the Super Bowl trophy we can hold next week, and that way he can go play in the Pro Bowl. Come on. I mean, and if you watch the tape, there's a couple of times he actually asks for he does this motion, like raise the roof type, and he gives you can watch it. They actually, instead of they give him the extra time on the play clock, they extend it for him. Also, if you watch the tape on the run, too, watch number 50 of the Jaguars. He is actually being held. And pretty much, I mean, if you do that on the street, that's what we call assault. I mean, watch the run again. He is literally, the guy's like hugging him. Like, I'm surprised. I'm like, it's like the ex-girlfriend you can't get away from is pretty much what it looks like. And it's just, I don't get it. And I mean, congratulations to the referees. They did a great Cleat, Clat, Cluck, Sucks. I don't know what your name is. It was funny, actually. I'll tell you, our off the segment campaign, me and Rich were talking here. I'm like, oh, they named the referees. And I'm like, great, two guys that suck, or the head guys. I'm like, they hit the two worst units. I mean, come on. Just give the game away. I'm like, I knew it was from the beginning. I'm like, terrible series. It's going to be a terrible game. And it wasn't too bad of a game, but I mean, come on.
That was a great game.
I mean, now it's becoming obvious the referees are for the Patriots. It's being obvious. I mean, every national sports website is reporting it now. It's not just like one random one is going on a limb. I mean, are the Patriots going to the Super Bowl? Yes. I mean, are the Eagles going? Yes. Who's everybody going to be cheering for? Eagles. And I love the fact the Patriots fans have to see the Eagle fans because, geez, they threw snowballs at Santa Claus. What the heck are they going to do if they lose the Super Bowl? Minnesota will be an abandoned town looking like South Philadelphia.
The metal detectors better be working good because they're bringing guns.
Yes. Watch out, Philadelphia. Watch out. By the way, there's a camera, too, of Minnesota fans entering it. All it is swear words, and then everybody has at least, like, 2 beers in their hands, too. Yeah. Minnesota will never be the same. Sorry, Minnesota.
Well, I'll just say this. I'm glad to hear that you got the Yinzer memo, Rick. You read that pretty much word for word. All those talking points they sent out about the refs being in Tom Brady's pocket. But
they shook his hand after the game. You can't even argue that. The guy's like, hey, can I get that? I'm surprised he didn't ask for an autographed football at the end of the game. And a hug, too. I mean, come on.
He's the greatest of all time. If I was an umpire and I saw Barry Bonds, I would do the same exact thing.
If I was a Jaguar and I saw that on the field, I would literally tackle the guy and say, you're supposed to be fair and unbiased. That was very biased. You should run off the field. The game isn't about you. That's the problem with umpires and referees. That's the problem with the NFL and the problem with major leagues. It's not about you. When I know your name, that's a problem. And I don't know click, clack, cleek, whatever his name is. I don't care to learn it because he's terrible and he sucks. But he's probably doing the Super Bowl too. Geez, he might as well just wear a Patriots jersey and make a 13-man on the field.
The sad thing is, there's a chance that Tom Brady could have as many Super Bowl rings as the Steelers franchise. And he's going to have, I think, he
deflated a couple of those, didn't he? Oh, wait,
well, I'll have to look at the stats, but he might have the exact same record himself as the Steelers franchise after this is done. Steelers have, 6-2? Tom Brady's
I don't know.
right now
5-2
tapes
on it. I destroyed them all, so I don't know.
I don't know. Keep an eye out for that. Plus, you think people are going to cheer for the Eagles? Dude, come on. We're all from Pennsylvania. The good side, though.
But I'm cheering for the Eagles.
You know those guys are jerks from Philly. Philly's full of jerks.
I mean, Nick Foles is a very devout religious person, very good player. Chris Long gave up his paycheck this year. He's playing for free. I think he's now making money finally. They're in the playoffs. I mean, they got some good stories there. Jake Elliott was cut by the Bengals. Jeez. I mean, there's some weird stories on that team, and you feel, and some of those players, I mean, one of your boys, Torrey Smith, he was practically out of the league, and they gave him a last chance. I mean, think about it.
Yeah, old Alshon Jeffrey, he was always hurt. He showed up in the game, had a few catches. I saw that.
Yeah. But
Matt, I'd like to get your thoughts on the Patriots. I know. Well, come on, it's pretty obvious why the Jaguars lost. Too many Seminoles on the defense there. Couldn't get a pass breakup in the second half.
No, here's what part of the problem was. When you look at the beginning part of the game, Jacksonville's game plan was about as perfect as you could possibly script an offense. They got Fournette going in the ground game. They kept Brady off the field. They mixed in play action passing. I mean, when you look at the template of every single successful football team, you run the football, you stop the run, you get yourself into manageable situations. When you win first and second down, so when you put yourself in a position where you're in like a third and less than 5, now teams can't really pin their ears back because you can hit a check down, and with a guy the size of Fournette, he's gonna push you 2 yards. So by getting themselves into those manageable situations, it's what put Jacksonville in that position that allowed them the opportunities to get the lead that they had. Now, the thing that separated the two was ultimately the coaching. Belichick had great second half adjustments. Jacksonville got away from doing what they were doing well. New England started stopping the run, and then Blake Bortles remembered that he was Blake Bortles and couldn't complete a pass down the field, and it put him into third and long situation. There are a couple times that incomplete passes and different things where they're not making yardage on first and second down. Now they're into these third and 11s, and Matt Patricia was able to dial up some blitzes, get pressure on them. Our boy James Harrison, since he wasn't playing at all for 16 weeks, finally got on the field and looked like a man possessed and came up with a couple plays.
I know Rick was a pure Yinzer on that. He was in pure denial, saying that wasn't Harrison. It was the left tackle or whatever.
The left tackle blew it. Watch the play. The left tackle made a step back, and when he made a step back, Harrison locked his hand and he ran. The left tackle was out of position on it. He should have been not back 2 steps. He should have been back 2 steps, not 1. I mean, I could have even got that, duck low enough and run. The guy was 6'8". I could have went under 5'9". 5'9", buy some speed and go. I mean, come on, let's be honest.
But as far as the Patriots are concerned, I think it goes back to a conversation that we've held before, where I think Brady's legacy and Belichick's go very similarly hand in hand. That I don't know that you can split Brady away from Belichick and say that the reasons one success was the other. So, I think long term, I think if Belichick walks away and Brady can continue doing what he's doing with someone other than the most hated coach in football, then I think you get that tip of the cap. But until then, I still kind of look at him with the same regard that Bart Starr had with Vince Lombardi, where it was Lombardi's system that Starr executed.
Was it Bill Belichick that got them so prepared that the Falcons just scored like 40 points on them? Because, I mean,
wins
when you're
losses, dog.
Yeah, because
when you look at most teams, Pittsburgh, when they're down that much, they don't come back. They come back and lose because they're not disciplined. They're not situationally aware. A really good special that they have, and you can look it up on YouTube, is Belichick's Do Your Job. And he goes into in-depth about some situational things that he talks about with players before the game, what could possibly happen, and it has contingency plans if things don't start going right off the initial scripted series. So the stuff that he takes into account a lot of time actually ends up playing itself out, and it's a reflection of a really good coach.
Well, I think we'll have a chance to see it without Brady, because I think Brady's going to stay there as long as Robert Kraft keeps him there. He'll never play somewhere else. And if he did, you'd be dumb as an owner to send him off. But if Belichick keeps coaching, we'll see. Because if Belichick quits right after Brady retires, then that makes me think that maybe it wasn't so much Belichick. I mean, he had failed before. So this is the only time that he's actually come around and won whenever he had Tom Brady. So Brady's only been in the league for how many years? But before that, Belichick was not a winner. So you can go ahead and add those two things up, that maybe Tom Brady's what put him over the edge. And we'll see if that's going to be proven point if he ends up walking away whenever Tom Brady does. Because he said he wanted to keep coaching. But Brady said he's going to play for like 5 more years. Because he would never have made those comebacks without Tom Brady. They would never beat the Jaguars without Tom Brady. I mean, the Steelers were in the same exact situation last week, although their defense didn't get a stop. Ben Roethlisberger is one of those quarterbacks that can get the job done. You have to have a quarterback that's going to be able to sling it in the late rounds, and Blake Bortles isn't going to do that. And their coaching got way too conservative. They're running the ball.
Yeah.
They could have stamped on their throat. Patriots were in the backfield. They were blitzing. Let Blake Bortles throw it, but they were scared. And if you're not going to throw it, then do something, dude. Run some shuttle passes. I mean,
one play that really helped them early was they ran the inside zone and then the swing pass off it. And every time they ran that little screen pass off of that fake, they were picking up close to 15, 20 yards an attempt. And then it was like they started handing the ball off and they were chunking yardage. And then it was like they just got away from it. And I don't know if it was a decision that they just completely checked out of the play, if it was Bortles was just handing off and not reading the throw right. But I don't know why in the second half you get away from that when every time you complete that quick dump off, they're picking up chunk yardage the way that they were.
Yeah, I think that's what they should have did. Go with something else, extend it wide. Like I said, throw a shuttle pass, run some screens, do something, try to get like out on the edge. They didn't do that. Another thing that I have my notes here. Steelers and Patriots both played the third quarter on offense almost exactly the same. And a lot of people called it out last week saying, Todd Haley, what were you doing? He didn't have any plan. The Steelers were just throwing it deep in that quarter, trying to make a comeback. The Patriots did the same exact thing. And I think by Brady just chucking it deep a couple of plays in a row, like they had to punt a couple times because he was just throwing it like 50 yards. And in the fourth quarter, that opened up a lot of deep outs and a lot of deep dig routes across the middle. Because I think the safeties were like, holy crap, we got to get back because he's chucking it deep. And I think that's what opened up a lot of things in the fourth quarter for them. So as much crap as Todd Haley got, the Patriots had almost the exact same philosophy with their offensive play calling. So again, I don't think it was on Todd Haley why the Steelers lost. Because there might have been something on the tape that's saying, hey, get these guys deep because maybe they're going to be a little trigger happy running back and leaving some of these underneath routes, which is what they did. I mean, Amendola went crazy there during their comeback, and he was just doing the same exact thing, just finding a little hook, a soft spot in the zone, like 12 yards downfield, and it was definitely there. So what were your thoughts on that, Matt? Did you notice that? Because it was almost the exact same.
Yeah, I did kind of notice that, and I think also that pressure, when you're going up against a team that is as successful as the New England Patriots have been recently, I think there is a psychological aspect to it that the team gets into teams' heads that you feel like you have to change what your identity is, and you have to change what you're doing, and it forces teams sometimes to do things that aren't characteristic of what their team normally does. I think you saw that with Jacksonville more in the second half that led to them having the 6 penalties for 98 yards. I mean, when you compare that with New England's 1 penalty for 10, a conspiracy theorist can say, oh yeah, it was home field advantage for New England. And that was initially my gut reaction was, wow, like when you have a series of penalties that are that lopsided, usually you see things like pass interference calls that if there's ones that are really bad one way over another, which I thought there were a couple questionable ones like that it could have gone either way, you think instantly, well, home field advantage. But I think waiting a little bit and seeing some of the other cut-ups and other commentary, the other part to it is that New England is just very well coached. And when you go up against a team like they're not going to give you the plays like a Cincinnati Bengals are going to do, where they're not going to cheap shot you. They're not going to get a Pittsburgh Steelers late misconduct penalty or the untimely interception is that you're going in to score. They just don't make those stupid mistakes that have recently plagued Pittsburgh and have been a part of Cincinnati for as long as they've been around.
Yeah, I agree. And it all comes back to coaching and things. Rick, do you have anything to add before I segue into the Vikings game?
Now, the one thing I will say is they're good coaching within that New England system. The coaches stink when they get out. How many coaches have they produced that have went on? Charlie over at Notre Dame, he busted.
Hey, Charlie Weiss, I think, didn't his son just get hired somewhere?
Yeah, at Florida Atlantic with Lane Kiffin. He's like 26 years old. He's like, hey, he knows what it's like to be a coach's son.
Yeah.
Coach's son unite right there.
Yeah, I mean, like, so many of them have busted outside. Josh McDaniels was with Denver at one time, busted. I mean, Bill O'Brien's not been the success that he was better at Penn State than he is at Houston. I mean, I think that's the thing. And I think the other teams, I'm going to take it reverse again. Is it Patriots are that good or the other teams are just that stupid?
Well, I would add into that.
Defense blew it. Jacksonville went way too conservative. And then you look at the Falcons, even the Super Bowl, they went way too conservative. And their defense couldn't stop them. I mean, it's almost like we're going to, do what you do all 4 quarters. Don't try switching it up. If you're beating them, keep doing it. Keep bringing it. Don't start changing your game plan because you think they may switch it. You switch it on the fly. Don't switch it at halftime.
Well, Rick, how much of that do you think is tied into the front office? Because these guys are going, like Charlie Weiss went to Notre Dame. That's college is a whole different beast. He wasn't tied into recruiting or anything. But then you talk about Bill O'Brien. He went to Houston. How much is that on these coaches doing well in New England because they're drafting well and they're able to evaluate talent. They're able to sign big free agents if they need to. And then you go to Houston and look at what he had to roll out at quarterback for the past couple of years. Tom Savage? Are you kidding me? That's the best guy you have as your backup? And he wasn't even the backup for a while. Okay, come on. If you were looking at Pitt, and I don't know if maybe Bill O'Brien makes these decisions. I think most NFL teams have a scout guy that makes these draft picks. But if you're looking at Tom Savage and what he did at Pitt, there's no way that you would have been yep, quarterback of the future. And that's what happened. And now he's a coach and he's stuck with them. So, will Bill O'Brien, if he would have went to Pittsburgh with a better front office at evaluating talent, would he have been more successful? I would think so. So I think some of it has to do, you have to be in a good situation. And I think that's why you won't see Belichick leave. Why would he go anywhere else? He's going to end up staying there. And him and Brady will be tied together. And if their legacy stays together, it's still great. People are going to remember who quarterbacked the Super Bowl wins. And it's going to be him. And it's going to pain Steelers Nation if Tom Brady gets his number 6. I know it is. But
well, the other piece to that, though, you're saying about the front office. New England makes it easy to sign these guys. You look at James Harrison. When Pittsburgh let him go, I'm sure he could have potentially signed with just about any franchise that he wanted to. But why did he sign with New England at the salary that he did? Because he knew that he'd be able to play for a championship there.
Yeah.
They can sign those people and they can sign whoever they want and they can say, we're not going to charge, they could take someone like a Le'Veon Bell and just say, you're going to shut your mouth. You're going to take $5 million a year and you're going to play for a Super Bowl. And if you don't like it, then go be a loser somewhere else. And he'll shut his mouth and he'll take his money and he'll buy into the system. He was able to take guys like Randy Moss and take Ocho Cinco that were with other teams very, very boisterous, very loud. And when they were in New England, they just played ball. They weren't doing all of the extra shenanigans that were bringing them popularity to with other franchises.
And those were still early too, so they didn't have all the Super Bowls as selling points for these guys. They were able to evaluate and say, all right, Randy Moss is worth the risk. Let's get someone to hang out with him, make sure he doesn't do anything stupid. How many franchises don't do that? How many franchises have their whole team out on boats like the Minnesota Vikings? Remember that scandal? Wasn't it their whole team was on a boat expedition, a huge boat party? You don't hear anything like that coming out of New England. They're able to take the chance on guys because they have that. And I want to jump into the Vikings here before it gets too late, because I was going to use coaching as a segue, but I can use that boat thing into the Vikings. Vikings, dude, they did not show up at all. And I'm a little disappointed just because I thought that was going to be the best game of the weekend. I mean, the Jaguars, the Patriots turned out to be an excellent game. But then you watch the hogwash that followed right after. That game was a complete bust. And I'm going to call out Pat Shermer. I think that was his name.
Yes.
You should not be able to interview for another coaching position in the middle of your team's playoffs. That's such bullshit. As a Michigan fan, I saw Michigan do that with DJ Durkin. He interviewed with Maryland, and then the defense came out flat against Ohio State the next week. And then, of course, on Monday, he's going to Maryland. He's the new Maryland coach. Everyone knew he was not game planning that defense, and we lost that game. Then you come back, and this. Who's this going to be on? Pat Shermer, he immediately after the game, he was on a bus to sign with the Giants or whatever he was doing there saying. Complete bullshit. And the league has the power to step in. Do they want these blowouts? Because I think if you go back through however many coaches make that jump, if they interviewed and they know that they have the job offer, they do not show up that week. Why would his offense, what would be the benefit of him putting all his best plays together for that game? I mean, maybe he gets a bonus, but he's a head coach. If he's going to game plan, why wouldn't he save those and be like, all right, you know what? I'm going to save some of my best stuff for when I'm a head coach because you don't want to be under a lot more scrutiny. And I know that's what happens. Your mind's not there. You're interviewing on another job that's not related. And now as fans, and I mean, I really didn't have a poll. I don't like the Eagles, but it's not like I like the Vikings. That just doesn't appeal to me. So I just wanted to see a good football game, and I didn't get to see that because old Pat Shermer didn't show up. And I'm going to put that loss on him. When you don't have an offense to move the ball, of course, your defense is going to get tired, and then the Eagles are just going to start to fly. Fly, Eagles, fly. They climb those greasy light poles. I think I tweeted that out before the game from Southbound Sports, and they got a job done. And now who knows what's going to happen in the Super Bowl. But we'll start with you this time, Rick. What do you think about the Vikings in that game?
Disappointment. Don't know what the heck they were doing, not staying to their offensive game plan. They did stay. They get the 7 points to start the game, but Eagles took over. I think that's one thing you'll see, especially with their defense, is between the Steelers, Jaguars, and Eagles. I will say this: Eagles seem to have more speed, and they can cover. Jacksonville's very speedy. I'll give them that too. But it seemed like their speed never stopped getting to the quarterback. They were constantly in that backfield. And I mean, you could say, I know they were making excuses. I know Joe Buck, the captain of the excuse team, was like, oh, Cook's not there. He's not playing. Well, Eagles lost Sproles. They're in the same boat. Yeah. You can't tell me both teams' number one running backs are gone. Here's why New England's in it. Here's why Eagles are in it. They can draft. They can sign free agents. They can pick up guys in trades. And I mean, Jay Ajayi was the guy they needed. They needed a Sproles-like player. Jay Ajayi was very good and out there. I think that's one thing that you're going to see here is you're going to see the battle of running backs. And I think this is going to be the telltale sign. Their running backs of the Eagles controlled the game and made it a lot easier for Nick Foles to complete passes because the run, you had to keep guys in the box against the run, and they were able to get guys open. And yes, you could say that the cornerback, Xavier Rhodes, got injured and Jeffrey scored a touchdown on it. But I mean, that touchdown wasn't going to be the touchdown didn't make or break that game.
Nope.
It was the fact that they were able to control the ball, control the clock, and run it. And I mean, and I'm going to give them credit. They got a great offensive line. Wisnowski's amazing, Penn State grad. And, you know, his father was too. But, I mean, you know, they were able to do it, and that was the thing. And their defense got them off the field quick. You know, they had lots of 3 and outs constantly. You got to keep the ball moving. And that's one thing that New England does and Eagles do. They're going to do these little dink and dunk plays. They're going to do 4, yards here, 2 more here. We only have to get 4 more for a first down. They break it down more instead of having to do 3rd and 9s like Minnesota and Pittsburgh had to do to come back. They didn't have to. It was like 3rd and 2. I mean, it wasn't big yardage. So, I mean, you got to give credit to the Eagles. And I mean, Nick Foles is going to go out there, I mean, and look great. And maybe he becomes, somewhat to help them out. Jimmy Garoppolo is a perfect example. Does he become the next one where they could trade him and say, hey, congratulations, you may be traded. And we'll trade you to a team like Cleveland who's desperate.
Yeah, them making him, because they let him go, right? He was there with Chip Kelly, and he seemed to be decent.
Kelly let him go.
Yeah, and then they let him go, and then they had the gall to bring him back in. And I mean, that's a great front office move. That's why you see some of these other teams never make the jump, because you have to be able to go ahead, try to get the pieces, and who knows? The way their defense is set up kind of reminds me of the Giants team. I don't know if their pass rush is as good as that Giants team that beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, but I mean, it's a similar style. You get a quarterback, as long as he doesn't turn the ball over, that can control the game like Eli did, have a strong rushing game, and a rush-heavy defense, and you're going to be able to break some of Belichick's schemes. And then that's where it's going to come down to what quarterback or what helmet catch is going to keep the game alive and who's going to score last. So I'm hoping this is going to be an epic game. But I don't know. What are your thoughts, Matt, on the Eagles or Vikings?
Well, you hit the nail on the head with that. My first talking point was that Shermer thing. That was the first thing that jumped out of my mind, is how the hell are you interviewing for jobs? And I'm curious to see when the Giants announced this, which coaches they were able to interview to fulfill the Rooney Rule, because they really jumped the gun very hard saying that, oh yeah, Shermer's our guy. But to interview the minority coaches, there was no news that was put out about that. It was just like, oh yeah, we're hiring Shermer now. So I want to see, for as quickly as people jumped on the Raiders about how they skirted that process hiring Gruden, I want to see with some of these other teams, what did that vetting process look like, and were they compliant? Do the Giants get a pass because they're the New York Giants and they have the big media base? I thought that it was ridiculous that Shermer's offense was as flat as what it was, because you're right. I agree 100% that he was probably tied up worrying about the move and worrying about interviewing and trying to find his next payday, that he wasn't focused on the task at hand. And that's shame on the Vikings for letting him interview, and shame on him for not doing the people of Minnesota giving them their fair shake. With that being said, though, I was happy for the Eagles. For a franchise that hasn't won a Super Bowl, it looks like on paper they have what it takes to upset New England. The front office took an absolute train wreck of franchise after Andy Reid left, assembled some of the pieces, allowed Chip Kelly to do his thing and pretend like he was playing Madden, and just trade off, make all these trades to build the team the way he wanted it. Let them then, after they ran him out, were able to bring in a new coach, reassemble the roster, in a way that they weren't going to use the spread offense stuff that he brought in, still kind of keep some of those pieces in play and build it around the talent that they had. So I think it was interesting to see how well they not only came together, but they went out and they picked up Ajayi. I thought that was a game changer for them. They were short their depth at running back wasn't very good, and I think bringing him in from Miami really proved to be the nail on the head, because even with Carson Wentz hurt, they really haven't missed a beat because they have such a sound running game that it's really carrying them now through the playoffs. And if they can continue to do that, then they stand a legitimate chance. Now, the flip side to that is, if they're able to pull this off, then you're really going to have to listen to the obnoxious Philadelphia fans talk about their Super Bowl win, even though they forget that Pittsburgh has $1 billion on their side as well.
Yeah, do we really want the Eagles to win? I know you guys are closer to it than I am, but that's one obnoxious fan base.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'd rather deal with them than listening to you and your Tom Brady, blah, 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 blah.
Tom Brady already has the most rings, guys, as a quarterback. He doesn't have to extend it. If he wins one more, no one will ever catch him in our lifetime. Think about it.
Right.
You'd have to have a guy come in and win. Like most franchises don't even win a Super Bowl. So, I mean, the good part is they wouldn't have to compete against him to win that many. But
Giselle will make Brady retire, and then Belichick will just find someone else. They'll just the machine will just roll right along.
We'll see.
That'll give 6, right?
Yeah, he'll have 6.
That'll try Chuck Haley then.
Yeah, you think if he's going to stay around for 2 more years, you think he has a chance to win 7? Is 6 the most any player has? I think it is.
Chuck
right?
Haley, I think, has 6.
Yeah, and that was him bouncing around, and that's not a quarterback.
Because he got one with the 49ers, one with Dallas, and I forget where he got the other ones. 49ers may have a couple of them.
Yeah. I don't know. It's crazy. But we'll end the NFL talk with that. Start to finish up the show. We do have one more topic, but we'll be back next week with that killer Pro Bowl. Isn't it next week? That's sarcasm because I will not be watching the Pro Bowl. I did see the Steelers had a ton of guys in it, but I just don't care. So we'll be back, though. Next week we'll talk about some NFL stuff, a little bit of a preview for the game. But the last topic I want to hit up is the Michigan State United States Gymnastics interview. I guess it's like indictment, whatever they're doing in court, because I saw it was picked up. I mentioned it last week. We actually did cover that, and this news was leaked. When did our story go up? I sent it to you guys. It was in February. So if you go to our site where I'm currently, it's under construction, but it's almost done. But last February, I put out a piece on the gymnast trainer at Michigan State that was doing like these harassment things, and that it was going to go to court. And no news media has picked it up until basically this week, which is crazy to me because I think this might be worse than the Penn State thing. There have been no resignations at the Michigan State University. Tom Izzo came out and said, I hope they got the right guy. Are you kidding me? You hope they got the right guy after all these girls are giving their indictments? I think Tom Izzo should have to sit down and listen to every single one of these. I tried to look on CNN. Did you think CNN was covering this? Nope. The whole front page was about Trump. This is, to me, a bigger scandal that other media has been ignoring. I don't know if it's because it deals with the United States gymnastics program, but as a father, I wouldn't want my daughter or anyone to go near the program that's stained like that. They were even thinking of not shutting down the training facility because they didn't want to go through that hassle in Texas or whatever. But I think they finally came around to that too. Like, this has been a complete shit show. And because there's no media pressure, nothing's being done. It's like a weird situation where Michigan State let a trainer run wild and molest girls. These girls were young too. Like, one of them was like 15. Some of them were even way younger than that. Since 1997, they knew about this. So it's 20 years. And he was still on campus last fall. I think the one girl said in October she had one of these. She reported him to the school, and they're still billing her for that appointment where she basically got molested. So thanks for coming to our facility and thanks for reporting that molestation. But here you have to pay us for that. It's embarrassing. So I don't know if you guys want to talk on that, but I wanted to make sure that we touched it, or that I touched it, just because it's frustrating that you have all these other news stories about, you'll see any NFL player. What was that guy for the Cowboys? They made a big deal about that he got arrested. It wasn't even him. And then the Cowboys cut him anyway. They used that as an excuse to cut him before the season. That was everywhere. But you really didn't see anyone talking about this. And to me, this is more pressure. It's not like the Me Too stuff or whatever, the Hollywood scandal that came out. This is more pressing because these were young girls and basically a predator that was reported and they let run wild. So it wasn't like it was like a mystery. He has been reported for 20 years and he finally is getting his due. So it's a sad situation. But I don't know if you guys want to add anything in.
Yeah, I will.
Go ahead,
I mean,
Rick.
especially with him because I followed on the Olympic side. I mean, you have Michaela Maroney, who was pretty much one of the leaders when she came out under Me Too and said, yeah, he did it, Nasser did it. And then you had other ones. Allie Raisman came out. Biles came out and said, yes, I agree to this. And they're all speaking of it. And you could actually watch them. I've watched a couple of them speak. I watched Allie Raisman's. Michaela Maroney's was a written statement because she was actually sued U.S. Gymnastics and she won money, so she couldn't speak. So they had somebody read hers. But then Nasser wrote the 5-page one space and said he didn't want to be here, and it was all crap. And the judge was out to become a Hollywood star and all this garbage. It was just garbage. The judge made him feel like crap. And then Allie Raisman was literally saying how terrible of a person he was and everything, which is fantastic. I mean, those young ladies now, because they're all young ladies, deserve that chance. And the sad thing is USA Olympics has fired their president, but that's it. They've only fired their president, and they have closed down the facility in Texas, which was run by, if you ever remember the Carrie Strug picture where she injured her ankle, it was run by that gentleman and his wife.
Bella Caroli.
What, say the name?
The Carolis.
Yes, Carolis, yes. So it was them that ran the facility. So he would go from Michigan State to there in the summer with the future Olympians, at this facility. I mean, just sad stuff. And everybody looked the one way. I know Allie Raisman said he attacked her while in a hotel room, and she declined treatment the one time, and she got in major trouble for declining treatment because he turned her in. So he goes, she knew what was happening, and they didn't do anything. I mean, Allie Raisman's wrote a book now. Michaela Maroney's said a lot of things on her Twitter. I mean, this guy's garbage. He'll spend his days rotting in jail. I don't think sentencing didn't come down. I don't think just yet in it.
I don't think.
But I think he's already guilty. I think they already did that part. But I don't think sentencing's done yet. So, but it's just garbage. USA Olympics needs to do tons and tons more on this. I think a bunch of people. And the sad thing is, from what USA Olympics, from what I've read and everything, is looking down upon the women that reported it because now it's giving them a black eye. Well, you deserve it because you didn't do your background checks, and you deserve everything you got. These are all true stories, and that's what the problem is. So I know it's a part of the Me Too. I mean, that should take off. We should figure out who's a creep and who's not a creep. But, I mean, they need to do investigations. If I say something like, hey, this happened, you got to do an investigation, no matter if it's the coach stole my lunch money, he took my shoes, he touched me inappropriately. Whatever it is needs to be investigated and done with, not pushed under the rug.
Yeah, especially if they had so many reports on it, like they said, and it took what the FBI started to investigate, and they had said that neither the school or the U.S. Gymnastics had ever reported it to the FBI as one of their sexual harassment things that I guess they're supposed to do. So the FBI started investigating it independently of these other bodies. They had no idea. But yeah, it's crazy. Matt, you have anything to add on it?
I think you guys pretty much hit everything with that one, but I don't think they should even waste time at this point. I mean, it's clear that he's guilty, and they shouldn't give him the luxury of spending the rest of his life in jail and on the taxpayer dollars. They should just save the money and just blow his brains out and be done with it, because he doesn't deserve to. He's not going to get out of jail. They're not going to allow, he's not going to have any quality of life. It's just going to be living in jail and absorbing money from the taxpayers. So I don't see why we should have to continue to pay for that when it's a pretty clear-cut multiple case. It's not just one person, possibly trying to get him in trouble. There's enough sources that they shouldn't have to be dealing with years upon years of him just hanging around.
Yeah, and these are high profile athletes too. You'd think they would have an easier time getting their word out. My heart breaks for them that they have to go through this, and people are just ignoring it flat out. But we'll wrap up the show here. Go around one more time with closing thoughts. I'll start off with something just to change the mood. I saw that Major League Baseball, I think, is becoming the first pro sports league to produce their own video game. They bought the rights to RBI Baseball, and they have an in-house team, and they're going to be putting out the newest version, RBI Baseball 2018 or just RBI Baseball 18 on like the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and I think the Nintendo Switch. And I wonder if things are going to go down that route more and more, especially with like the Madden license whenever EA Sports is the only one that can make a football game, which is kind of like limiting your options. Now they have all this weird, like Madden, you have to collect trading cards. They gutted like basically the franchise. There's no online franchise mode. So I would like to see more sports leagues go ahead, listen to the fans and bring that in, because I mentioned this on one of my rants that I think video games are one of the reasons why people are tuning out, because they don't appeal to the younger kids. Younger kids aren't going to learn football, especially with all the concussion stuff. You really think soccer moms are going to let kids play football? There's no way for them to get attached to people if they can't play video games. And Madden's sales have fallen. I think this was the first year they fell under 1 million units sold within the first week or whatever. So I wonder if that will come around and NFL will start to do some of their own stuff in-house, which would be a good way to bring like stats and things to people at home, even like some coaching report stuff that I like to read through. So I thought that was interesting, and that's going to be my closing thought for the day. We'll go around, start with you, Matt.
Just a quick statistic that I thought was interesting. Nick Foles was once named NFC Player of the Month. Tom Brady was never named NFC Player of the Month. So I think clearly that gives the advantage to the Eagles here in the Super Bowl.
I saw that same exact stat, and there was like 10 of them. 10 lines I saw, and I'm like, I'm not even going to send this to the guys because I know I'll have to hear it.
Too late. I already sent it to you.
Rick, what's your ending thoughts?
2 thoughts here. I want to go make fun of Mel Kiper because his hair is awful. And 8 years ago, he said that in 2018, if Jimmy Clausen wasn't a top quarterback, he would retire. So goodbye, Mel Kiper, and your ugly hair. Thank you.
Is he actually retiring?
It was a clip somebody found like in 2000, and he said it. I mean, but here's your other thing. If you're a quarterback not named Brady, Manning, Roethlisberger, or Flacco, I forget what year it goes back to, you weren't in the AFC court. You weren't an AFC quarterback going to a Super Bowl. Now, some of them all of them won, but some of them have losses in there too, except for Flacco, because he's an elite quarterback. But also the other thing is too, Major League Baseball Hall of Fame announcements are going to be made here. I'm hoping for 2 of my favorites growing up, Trevor Hoffman, Chipper Jones. I hope this is the year for both of them. They both deserve it.
Chipper should get in.
Chipper, I think, is going to be an easy one. I don't see any complaints or anything there.
He's what, the best switch hitter of all time? Correct?
Batting average, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure on the other numbers, but I know batting average he is. But I'm hoping Trevor Hoffman gets in, gets the 7, gets the votes needed. I know right now on the last tally I saw he's barely in, so hoping he gets in. But we'll wait and see. I think Bonds and Clemens stay on for another year, but they're not making it in.
You don't think my man Bonds is going to get in?
No.
He's the last great pirate. You know how like Tom Cruise was the last great samurai? The last pirate, Barry Bonds.
First off, who saw that movie with Tom Cruise? And second of off, I mean, there's so many good players right now. Edgar Martinez is an option on the ballot. I mean, there are Kurt Schilling's on it. Sammy Sosa. Jim Tomei had a lot of votes.
Sammy Sosa corked his bat.
Yeah, but he's not going to – he'll stay on the ballot. He won't make it.
And he's like doing some weird skin thing now.
Yeah, you don't even – look up Sammy Sosa 2018. You'll be creeped out the photos you see. If Vlad Guerrero has a very good chance. I'm looking down through here. I mean, people are making the case for Billy Wagner. That one I'm not getting as much. I think he has a good chance. But, I mean, it's only going to get worse because you're going to eventually have Mariano Rivera. You're going to have Jeter. You're going to have some other guys who are going to get tons and tons of votes. Take them away. I mean, I know there's some other cases out there. I know the Mike Bucina case is out there. I don't see him getting it. So,
Yeah, I don't know. We'll end it with that. I did want to end it with one other thing, Rick. Michigan ended up beating Penn State in their hockey series this year, 3-1. So
I saw that.
That was the final tally. That's always good to see.
We're still in the top 15. Still not doing bad.
The Big Ten has six ranked teams.
Big Ten hockey's unbelievable.
6 ranked
Notre
teams, and they
Dame.
only rank 20. So that's like a fourth of the league.
Yeah.
Or fourth of the rankings is Big Ten.
Oh, yeah.
So that's good. But one with that, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. Follow us on Twitter, SBound Sports. If you want any topics you want us to hit up, leave comments or send them to us on Twitter, and we'll get back to you. Thanks.